Blessings, everyone, in Jesus' name. Today, January 4th, first Sunday of the new year. I want to talk to you about brokenness. I found a beautiful text by one of Watchman Nee's teachings that talks about brokenness, and I want to share part of it with you. It says, a spirit of brokenness is not a state of depression or self-deprecation, but a conscious openness to God that comes from recognizing our total dependence on Him. When we are being broken, when we undergo situations in our life that bring us to fall on our knees, to be helpless, it's not to punish us. It's to open up our conscience that we have to totally be dependent on God. It is meant to break our self-sufficiency and create channels through which His life can flow. Watchman Nee says, God has to break the outer man so that the inner man can be released. We all have this outer man and an inner man. The outer man was built through the flesh. We were born spiritually blind, not even aware that we have an inner man. It was only the outer that controlled everything. But once we're born again, God begins to break this outer shell that we built throughout our lives in order to get to the true creation, the new creation that He made. And it is not a one-time event, but a continuous process through which God frees us from our reliance on ourselves so that we can trust fully in Him. It is a pain that leads to freedom. Nobody enjoys pain. Nobody enjoys suffering. That's why there are so many hundreds, thousands of methods out there that promise you a miracle cure, that promise you you will never suffer again. But it's all lies. It's all lies. We may get a temporary relief, but as long as we are in this world, we will go through suffering. Jesus told us that. And it is naive, I would say, and even stupid to believe that it could be otherwise. But when we are going through this pain, it all depends how we accept it. if we embrace it, knowing that this is happening to me because God is trying to free me from parts of me that don't align with His will. It could be the way I'm thinking. It could be a habit that I have. It could be unforgiveness in my heart. It's up to each and every one of us to discover what it is. But it's a process. It's a training. Just like, athletes have a very rigorous training in order to compete in the Olympics. They go through severe pain, severe diet, severe sacrifices to obtain the gold medal. Well, this is spiritual training to obtain freedom, true freedom. Here's a great illustration that Watchman Nee gives. Think of a broken arm that has been improperly set. The doctor needs to break it again so that it can be set properly, aligned, and healed the right way. Similarly, God often needs to re-break areas of our lives where we have developed patterns of self-sufficiency so that we can experience the true healing that comes from depending on Him. This is the true healing. Total dependence on Him, not worldly methods, magical cures. Oh, buy this book with all the plant, and they'll even use, God's name. God gave us all these plants, all these herbs. Buy this book, learn how to heal yourself. There is some truth to that, yes. But my body is going to decay no matter what I do. What matters is that my spirit, my soul is healed. That I am aligned with the will of God, even though my body is decaying. Where am I going to put my focus, in other words? In Isaiah 57:15, we read, God declares, I dwell in the high and holy place, but also with the contrite and lowly in spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the contrite. He's always there. He's always with us. I've received many miracles. I'm not going to quote them all, but I'll give you one major healing that God did in my life. It's almost 10 years ago now. I had a severe accident. I fell down the second floor stairs. It was in December. It was winter. No, actually, it was not in December. It was in October, now I remember, because it was a few days before my birthday, the 17th of October. My birthday is on the 19th. And we had the very first snow. And out of my apartment, there are, stairs that go down like this, not straight down. And the landlord had not yet put any covers on the stairs. There was no carpet, nothing. I didn't pay attention, I guess, but anyway, as soon as I put my foot on the stair, I just slipped and fell backwards. I heard myself scream and I hit my head really hard, and then I didn't remember anything anymore. When I woke up in the hospital a few hours later. I had a severe concussion. My head was cracked open on one side. I had blood in my brain, around my brain. My eye was red and purple because of the blood. And I guess as I fell, I tried to hold on to the railing, and this ring finger was completely, it didn't break, but it tore completely backwards. Horrible. Anyway, I woke up in the hospital. I didn't know what was going on. And in those days, I was raising money for a ministry in Africa, in Uganda. I was communicating with a pastor over there, and I had already bought my ticket to go in December. That's another story and another miracle that God did, but I won't go into it. And I was supposed to give a concert that night, the 17th of October, the same day of the accident. Of course, we had to cancel everything. I had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. And they told me if the blood would not resorb by itself, I would have to have major surgery in my brain and my skull to remove the blood. And so I was in my room, sitting on my bed all by myself, and I said, Father, whatever happens, happens. But I know if you want to heal me, you will heal me. I don't understand why this happened. Now I do. 10 years later, I know that it was God trying to warn me not to go to Africa. But back then, I didn't understand. Well, when they did another scan of my head, the blood had gone. It resorbed on its own. And they did so many tests because they were surprised that I didn't have any consequences from this accident. One nurse even told me that most people who have that kind of injury never recover. They will have problems with their brain, or they will be paralyzed. So she was very, very surprised that I was perfectly fine. But I knew. And I told her, I said, this is a miracle from God. I knew right away God healed me, gave me grace. So this was just a little testimony. So when we allow our weaknesses to lead us to a spirit of brokenness and dependence, we experience the exchange of life, the process by which our weakness is replaced by strength of Christ, our failure by His victory, and our death by His life. Paul described this exchange when he said, always carry the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may also be manifested in our body. In 2 Corinthians 4:10, there is a continual surrender of our natural life so that the supernatural life of Christ can be manifested in us. He comes, it's not clear what I wrote here. The learning to live on the other side of the cross. The resurrection life, that's the other side of the cross. The resurrection life that can only be experienced after we have passed through the death of self. Resurrection means that God does what you cannot do. We cannot resurrect ourselves. We cannot save ourselves. He has to raise us up. Only God can save us. This is the greatest release of the Christian life. The discovery that we do not have to strive to live for God because Christ lives in us. We do not need to try to imitate Jesus. We need to allow him to express his life through us. But in order to be able to do that, the outer man needs to break. We have to make room for Jesus to live through us. You understand? That's why we have to go through sickness, through brokenness. It's his way of saying, something is wrong here. I need more room. In Philippians 3:10, Paul expresses his greatest desire. I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, becoming like him in his death. Fellowship in his suffering. To die with him and rise again with him. So first comes participation in Christ's sufferings and conformity to his death. And only then comes the knowledge of the power of his resurrection. It's only when we die, it's only when we fall down completely and say, I cannot anymore. I cannot, Lord, I cannot. The power of his resurrection will bring us back up again. Only then. And we will be transformed. The one who is down, who's sick, I will leave that part of me behind. There's a new me that is being resurrected. You understand? It's like, I often give the example of the caterpillar in the cocoon. Once the caterpillar goes through all the metamorphoses and becomes the butterfly and flies away, finished. It doesn't look back. It is no longer a caterpillar. It is no longer in a cocoon. It's free. And this is the process we go through over and over again. You understand? This power can only be known to the extent that we know the way of the cross. When we embrace our weaknesses and opportunities to experience God's power, something extraordinary happens. Those same weaknesses that once shamed us become channels of divine grace. Isn't that beautiful? The same weaknesses that once shamed us become channels of divine grace. The very points of brokenness that we thought disqualified us for service to God become the places, precisely the places where His power is most clearly manifested. In 2 Corinthians 4:7, Paul uses a powerful metaphor. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. The clay jars of antiquity were common, fragile, and often cracked. Yet it is these imperfect vessels that Paul says contain the treasure of the gospel. Our weaknesses are cracks in us, right? Are precisely what allow the light of Christ to shine through us. A perfect vessel without cracks would keep the light completely contained. But a broken vessel lets the light escape and illuminate everything around it. That is why Paul could confidently say, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong." I will stop here and we will continue tomorrow. Remember, he said this in 2 Corinthians 4:7. I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities, for when I am weak, then I am strong. Paul understood that it was only through brokenness that Christ's light could truly shine. And that's why he was never healed of the thorn in his flesh. It kept him humble. It reminded him that it was never in his own power. Thank you. Happy New Year again. And God bless you. See you tomorrow.